Okay, so we have two more big points to go through. Oops, sorry, head on right. Two more points to go through on chapter 4, and I'm outside because it's a nice day outside. So once again, trying to get some yard work done today and tomorrow. So we're going to split them up, split these up, and then do some practice questions afterwards. So the one point I want to make here is about public goods versus private goods, and who does what, who should do what. And we talked a little bit about governments providing in, stepping in, things like mass transit and stuff. But I'll get to that in a minute. But right now, I want you to focus on the two major points here with public and private goods and what's defining them. Is that a private good has rivalry, which means is we are both, you and me, or another business and me as a private citizen, or another business and a business. We're all going after the same things. So if physically you buy that product or service, somebody else can't have that. So even in the service sector, if I hire a consultant, that consultant may not be available to you. So that's rivalry, meaning that if I get it, you don't. If you get it, I don't. Now, hopefully, there's enough of them there where if you grab the first, game unit on that Black Friday sale, that there's a couple more there left for me to grab and other people to grab. But eventually, it will run out. So somebody's got to come up short. Now, second point here is about excludability, and here's where we get into that. Go back to that discussion of the willingness and ability to do something, the willingness and ability to pay. Those people who have the willingness and ability to pay for a luxury automobile will exclude the other people who either don't have the ability or the willingness, or both, to pay for that luxury automobile. So you'll have some examples here of time period of things where the that comes into play when you talk about things that are high priced, or luxury items, for example, are usually the major thing here with that, where you have something that is just kind of pricing people out of the marketplace. All right, so those two things right there, if you think about it right now, what determines if we have a system, a competitive marketplace economy, where the market kind of determines where things go, they're gonna make sure that they can produce things that people want and that they're willing and able to pay for. It's just that certain things that we consider necessities, or things that we want to have in our economy, cannot be provided by the private sector profitably. So now we'll talk about public goods. Public goods are those things that have the opposite. There's non-rivalry. If you use a public good, it doesn't diminish my ability, or shouldn't diminish my ability to use that public good. And the second point here is that the non-excludability, it doesn't factor in. The willingness and ability to pay for it shouldn't factor in. They're public. They're for the public. So if you think about a public library, for example, or you think about a public park, or you think about things that are available for everybody to use, a non-private beach at the shore, for example, everybody can use it. Some beaches I know do charge, others don't. But if you just have an open stretch of beach, or anything of that sort, not talking about private property where you're on my get off my yard, get out of my yard kind of deal here, but just like a ball field right now. If you think about if you're taking your kids out and playing in the soccer fields at the high school. Well, as long as you don't create a game there where you have 25 people showing up, but if you just want to hang out there, it's a public area. You are not denied that opportunity to do that. So now, again, that's for certain things. Now, the market's not going to produce a park because they can't make profit on it. All right. So nobody's going to do that. I mean, a company may produce, like the Hershey's company may contract out to build an amusement park in Hershey, PA, but they're going to charge you for it. So that's that willingness and ability thing. But they're not going to just build a park for everybody to use. Now, sometimes corporations do that. Maybe they build a nice little pond area and you can walk around. But for the most part, parks are up to the the public sector to do that. Public sector jobs, public sector employees will maintain it. Public sector will pay for it. And so those are the kind of things that are good for quality of life. but we also want to make sure that we can, get access to them, and we have them. And certainly, in East Brunswick, there's plenty of opportunities for that. You can, walk along a park. You could go into the Frost Woods. You could, under normal circumstances, play on the playground equipment at Great Oak Park or Bicentennial Park. Now, the problem with public goods, and the book talks in detail, and I'll give it another example here, is what's called the free rider problem. The free riders are people who use the facilities, but who really, one way or another, either directly or indirectly through taxation, pay for those facilities. So, East Brunswick builds Great Oak Park. And I would say for the most times I've been there with my kids that, most of the people there are from East Brunswick. So, it's our park, and Sayreville people aren't going to travel to, necessarily travel to Great Oak Park just for the sake of traveling to the Great Oak Park when they've got parks in their own town. But what happens when somebody kind of invades that park, or people from outside the community come in and get involved with that park or start taking it over? There was an example a couple of years ago in New Jersey, in Mahwah. Mahwah is right up at the very northern tip of the state of New Jersey. It's on the border with New York State. So if you're taking 287 up, at the very end of 287 is Mahwah, and then you get across into New York State. The citizens of Mahwah, and take it for what it's worth, because this is going to be slightly inflammatory for the citizens of Mahwah. The citizens of Mahwah were complaining that Orthodox Jews from Putnam and Orange counties were coming down and using their nice public parks. And I mean, not just one family with kids. We're talking about van loads coming down at a time and using the public parks there. Now, do those communities in Putnam and Orange County build parks on their own? I don't know. Maybe not to the same style or type as what's there in Mahwah, but suddenly now they wanted to exclude by having a residence check, like as in, okay, we're going to station a police officer at the beginning of the park or at the entrance, show your driver's license. If you're part of the community, you can use it. This is our community. We're going to use, only Mahwah residents can use this. And try to exclude the Orthodox Jews from using it. And so that went to the courts, and the New Jersey Supreme Court said, no, that is serious, racial profiling, ethnic, religious profiling there, and you can't deny any member of the public from using that park. So any person can use that park, as long as they're not using it for commercial purposes, I guess. You're not setting up a pay for admission concert there without the permission of the township. But, that's what happens. And, the arguments that are being made here is that those free riders diminish the use of the park for the citizens. They can wear the park out. I mean, obviously, yeah, that's a concern there. But, I mean, playground equipment is supposed to be a little more durable. So you have this playground, and nobody's, and anybody can use it, and not just the people who are residents there. And you can't exclude other people from that. So, but it is a touchy situation here. If people from, for example, non-Rutgers students go into Rutgers Library, is that a public library? No, not particularly. But can members of the public use the library, use the Alexander Library? Yes. Okay, they don't check IDs at the door. If you come in there with your younger brothers and sisters, you can drop them off at the appropriate location and let them go do their research, and you can do yours. So, but again, that's, you think about like the people who are being paid there at Rutgers Library, they're there mainly to help the Rutgers students and staff. But if the general public kept coming in and tying up more of their time working with them rather than with the Rutgers students and staff, then you could see the problem of free riders or people who are hanging on. And the private sector goes after that a lot more. If you think about like people who try to steal cable TV, that goes back years ago. The neighbor next door to me tried to steal HBO when it first got onto the cable, because he was able to get up on the pole and hook a cable wire, a coaxial wire down. He was able to somehow get HBO. Wanted to know if we wanted it, and I said, no, we don't watch HBO, so not a problem. No, thanks. The private sector will go after that. They'll go after people who are glomming onto or stealing or diminishing, because again, that's a private good. and maybe that guy who goes up there and goes up to the hook up there and messes around with it so that he can tap into it for his house diminishes the signal for everybody else who's legitimately in that. So private sector will go after it. Public sector, what are you going to do? Are you going to create the situation like you did with in Mawa? It doesn't look good. It's bad publicity that you're basically excluding the Orthodox Jews because they have large families and they come there in groups and nobody likes them. So it's like, whoa, that kind of really did expose the kind of racist nerve there in Mawa. So public private goods, that's what you got to kind of consider here. Now there's one kind of in between good we have to talk about, and that's called quasi public goods, and we'll get to it in just a second. I gotta take care of something. Okay, I'm back. All right, so quasi public goods, things that the marketplace could and sometimes does provide on a pay for service or pay for product basis, yet the public does more of that or does the lion's share of that work. So you talk about, for example, roads, talk about public education. Yeah, there is private education. There are for-profit schools. There are charter schools. There are for-profits. There are lots of variations here. You could be homeschooled by private tutors if you really wanted to. But are they going to really make a lot of money on it? And are they going to provide it to as many people as possible? That answer is probably no. Okay, private schools are always going to be niche. Not everybody gets to go to Rutgers Prep. Not everybody gets to go to a parochial school. You have to pay for it. But can it on a case by case or limited quantity basis? Can it be there? Yes. But again, the public benefit outweighs the needs of profit, so the public sector jumps in and does that. So I talk about mass transit. That's another example here. You plug that in. Mass transit's not going to run trains all the way up to northern Jersey or all the way into Camden if there's not ridership. But the state may say, you know what, we can't have, and we can't make certain parts of the state feel like second-class citizens because they don't have access to mass transit. So they run the lines, and they're not there to make a profit. Of course, they like to be able to be solvent financially, but you can't necessarily dictate that. So you charge a fare fee. A fare. You get some subsidies, maybe from the general tax fund, from the gasoline tax, and that's how you deal with it. So that's kind of like where quasi public goods are, is that the market could do it in small cases, make some profit on it, but they really don't want to. But the public thinks that they're important, so the public has to provide it. Could a public entity do a for-profit surcharge-based library? Yeah, good, but is it really going to help? No. I mean, they're not going to do it. They're not going to waste that much time and energy on that, especially when the public library is there to do that. So they'll step away and allow something, allow certain industries to do that. Now, again, mass transit is mass transit. So you have the Postal Service. The Postal Service is a public entity. It's a public good. But there are ways to, if you want to improve service, that you go to FedEx or DHL or UPS to do that. And in a way, that helped make the Postal Service more competitive. But still, they're not doing first class mail. Okay, they're not doing first class mail. UPS is not going to deliver for 55 cents a letter. They're not delivering letters to your address. Okay, they'll deliver packages. They'll do overnight. They'll do things that they can make a profit on. So, take that for what it's worth. All right, so you're done with this. There's going to be some multiple choice practice questions in the assignment page. So you'll take a look at those. You'll do those in, basically a minute of questions. So how many ever I cut and paste onto there, you'll do that. And then I will post the answers 2 days from now. So when you get this, then 2 days from now, I will post the answers. You need to go back into it. Most of you have done that with the last time we tried this was the Friday the 27th of March. Most of you have done that. Some of you didn't, but you need then to come back in, check it 2 days from now, look at the answers, and then make a comment on your own work so that you can check and see, make sure how you're doing that. So I'll start posting like almost daily now some review questions, whether it's in the form of cutting and pasting from the actual AP tests, or perhaps going back into some of my old tests and creating kind of maybe cutting 5 or 10 questions out of a specific topic like fiscal policy or the central bank, and just popping them in a topic way. I can do that. I have the opportunity. I have resources for that. So we'll do that. Again, hopefully you'll get a chance to enjoy some of the nice weather when it comes around. Again, I'm recording this before the break, and this is going to be played after the break because all the lessons so far, Chapter 4, are ready to go. Please check the announcements for any kind of formal announcements concerning what they're going to do with the AP macro exam. All right, and to answer the question, where's Perry? Here's Perry.